Hey, what's up guys? I posted a power rankings thread the other day saying that if I got enough interest, I would do a power rankings video. Well, you guys gave me a lot of support, and I decided I'd get right to work on it. So I've been working all day long. Before we get into it though, I just want to say that these are based off of what I saw over the preseason and what I see each team's long-term success being. I think that this preseason has proved anything, it is that almost every team can take maps off each other. That being said, let's get right into it. Coming in at number 1, we have Seoul Dynasty. Seoul Dynasty is made up of ex-Lunatic High, one of the best teams in Overwatch history. Winning back-to-back Apex Seasons 2 and 3, they came into the preseason ranked very high for a reason. With wins over Shanghai Dragons, Houston Outlaws, and New York Excelsior. A total map score of 9-2, the highest win percentage of any team during the preseason. Starting off day 1 with a clean performance against Shanghai, they were able to take every single map with a 4-0 victory. And the second day, they had an extremely close match with Houston Outlaws. 3 of the 4 maps could have easily gone to either team. But when it came down to it though, the Korean powerhouse proved they are even better in the clutch. The main reason I put them at number 1 is because they had one of the best performances, and the roster from top to bottom has proven talent. It's hard to pick standout players on a roster with Ryuhong, Miro, Fleta, Bunny, Weekend, Toby, and the list just keeps on going. The entire roster is stacked. They are a clear contender for the championship. Coming in at number 2, we have London Spitfire. Now, some of you might be questioning this pick after the loss to LA Gladiators, but let me remind you that it was an extremely close match, and the LA Gladiators are no slouch of an opponent. It is clear that the GC Busan part of the roster completely underperformed and left a lot of people speechless. It's hard to comprehend how such a godlike team that took out Kongdu Panthera 4-0, Lunatic High 3-0, not once but twice, and defeated Runaway 4-3 and then 4-0, doesn't come in and completely dominate every single team, including the newly formed LA Gladiators. If we take a look back at GC Busan's run, yes, it was extremely dominant and arguably one of the greatest in Overwatch history, but it was also very short and we only seen them in that meta. GC Busan are a young roster, and like many strong teams in their past, their performance dropped in a meta shift. With more practice and time, they should be able to become that dominant team that they once were. I expect them to be much improved coming regular season. Now moving on to the other half of the roster, which is made up of Kongdu Panthera. This roster finished the week with a clean 5-0 map score, showing that they are extremely flexible and innovative, especially when it comes to the 2CP play. The London Spitfire's management also made a mistake sending in the wrong roster for Junkertown against LA Gladiators. The Kongdu roster was supposed to play the first map, Junkertown, not GC Busan. This definitely had an impact on the result as well, but that also is still a mistake on London's part. In the end, Kongdu looked amazing, and I think London has a huge advantage having 2 world-class teams to do in-house practice with. Despite the lackluster performance from GC Busan, I'm sure they will return back to form, and London will be one of the strongest teams in the entire league. At number 3, we have Dallas Fuel. Just like most of this list, 3rd, 4th, and 5th spots were extremely hard to rank. I said in my prediction video that Dallas Fuel and Houston Outlaws was going to be one of the most exciting and closest games of the entire preseason, and gee golly was I right. This match was an absolute nail-biter, both teams proving that they were dominant over the other in different maps, leading to that epic Game 5 on Lijiang where the first 2 rounds went 99-99, leaving both teams with 1 round. The third point is where Dallas Fuel's experience shined through it though. They closed it out 100-38. Although there were some decently close maps in their second match with Florida Mayhem, Dallas still proved to be a dominant team. Running a lot of experimental comps in this match, I think it's safe to say Dallas was using this match to learn new things. Formerly playing under Envious, this team has proven for almost 2 years that they are a staple in the Overwatch scene. With nice additions to their roster, they have nowhere to go but up. I can see this team being near the top come championship time. At number 4, we have New York Excelsior. Again, with such limited games, deciding who to put 3rd, 4th, and 5th was extremely difficult. I went with New York over Houston solely because I think they will have better long-term success. New York faced off against Boston Uprising in their first game. After almost being first held on Dorado, they narrowly came out with a victory due to Pine and Sabiolbi's heroics. In what was a really close series, New York was able to come out with a 3-1 victory, only dropping 1 map, Elios, because of some great fair play by Dreamcasper. In their second set, they were up against the powerhouse Seoul Dynasty. They started off strong with an extremely impressive Junkertown win off the back of Pine's Widow. Unfortunately, though, for Pine and New York, as the series went on, it turned into the Fleta show. Seoul Dynasty took the last 3 maps pretty easily, even first holding them on Nubani the last map. New York had a pretty impressive performance, though, considering they have been rotating 2 of the strongest DPS players, Libro and Pine, on support because Jonak wasn't eligible. Come the regular season, though, Jonak will be 18 and available to play. This will provide a nice boost to the star-studded roster who are looking to achieve glory. At rank number 5, we have the Houston Outlaws. Houston might have gone 0-2, but they played 2 of the greatest teams of all time and put up a hell of a performance. Taking most people by surprise, they were inches away from defeating Dallas Fuel and Seoul Dynasty. In their first match against Dallas, it was back and forth the entire time, leaving the viewers on edge wondering what team would come away with the victory. Jake and Linkser both had great showings, proving they were comfortable on multiple roles. Seeing both these players go head-to-head with effect on Tracer was also something I did not expect. Dallas brought some wonky comps and played a weird style that we haven't seen before. This left Houston having to adapt, and they did. Unfortunately, though, at the end of the series, Dallas switched into their highest gear, taking the victory 3-2 on Li Jiang. Their next match was against Seoul Dynasty, and was very similar to the last match, back and forth. Houston defeated Seoul on Lunar Colony, holding them to 1 tick on the second point. This was a stunning performance after seeing Seoul walk all over New York Excelsior, capping with 6:30 left on the second point of Lunar. This match would end in a 2-1 after a tie on Nubani, where New York Excelsior was also first held by Seoul. Like I said earlier, I could have easily put Houston Outlaws above New York Excelsior, but they haven't had the long-term success that New York has had. So we'll definitely be looking at the squad to prove they're here for the long haul. I could definitely see Houston Outlaws being one of the better teams in the league. Coming in at number 6, we have the Los Angeles Valiant. The Los Angeles Valiant performed very well and actually took me by surprise. Although they faced a tiring San Francisco Shock in their first match, they still looked great and had some extremely clutch plays. Starting off with Junkertown, San Francisco held LA on 3rd near the end of the map. Struggling on defense though, LA found themselves having to hold the last point for almost 6 minutes. A comp swap to full dive allowed them to get their feet on the ground and start a decent hold. LA ended up holding San Francisco down for 5 minutes. But in San Francisco's last attempt, they finally had a decisive team fight. LA kept stalling though, and bought just enough time for Silk Thread to find an opening with his Dragon Blade, where he completely wiped the entire San Francisco team. Silk Thread and Los Angeles came in clutch, with one of the best Dragon plays and holds in the entire tournament. The series would continue to deliver, with ups and downs from both San Francisco and LA. But by the time it got to the last map, LA wore San Francisco out, and they took the win on Li Jiang, getting them a 3-2 victory in the series. In the second set, the Los Angeles Valiant went up against the Los Angeles Gladiators. With back-to-back first hold on Dorado and Anubis, the LA Valiant were proving to be the stronger Los Angeles team. On Ilios though, Valiant seemed to struggle a little bit. Silk Thread looked a bit uncomfortable on the Pharah, and was outclassed by Surefour. They ended up losing Ilios pretty easily 2-0 to the LA Gladiators. On the 4th and final map, Eichenwald, the Los Angeles Valiant proved to have a strong defense once again and held the Los Angeles Gladiators on the second point. The combination of Silk Thread's Genji and Soon's Tracer was too deadly for the Gladiators to handle. All the LA Valiant players seemed to be clicking on all cylinders, proving that their previous synergy really came into play. If the Los Angeles Valiant keeps improving at a steady pace, I don't see why this team wouldn't be a top playoff contender. At number 7, we have the San Francisco Shock. Going into preseason, a lot of people had been placing San Francisco at the bottom of their ranks. Well, they shocked the world in their first match versus Florida Mayhem with an explosive performance. With a chip on the shoulder, they proved to all of us that they can not only make playoffs, but they can also go for a deep run. Standout performances by Baby Bay and Sleepy in this match allowed them to take an easy 3-0 lead, only dropping the last map Eichenwald to Florida. After this first set, though, the San Francisco Shock would end up having to play another one against the Los Angeles Valiant. This was a tall task for San Francisco to take on, but they would end up with a 2-1 lead in maps. As I mentioned above, though, the series was extremely close, and if it wasn't for LA Valiant wearing out the San Francisco Shock, they could have easily taken this set 3-0 or 3-1. Instead, though, the LA Valiant were able to wear them down and take the last 2 maps, ending the series in a clinic on Lijiang. San Francisco played 9 maps in a row on the opening day, something that they will never have to do again. In their last match, they played against London's Kongdu roster 4 maps in a row. Falling 4-0 seemed like a major drop-off in skill for San Francisco, but I think it mostly had to do with Kongdu's stellar performance, and this shouldn't be looked at too hard. Although San Francisco lost 2 series and only won 1, I think they looked extremely strong, and long-term, they can improve a lot, especially with the additions of Super and Sinatra halfway into the season. Number 8, we have the LA Gladiators. The Los Angeles Gladiators had a very interesting performance this preseason. Going in, they were also considered to be one of the worst teams by many people, including me. Going up against London, you had to be crazy to think the Gladiators had an advantage. Sure, maybe you could say it would be close, but no one really thought LA would win. In a crazy 5-game series, the LA Gladiators were able to take 3 maps off GC Busan and looked very good throughout the series, besides 1 game on Lunar Colony against Kongdu. Although this was a great series, I couldn't help myself to feel disappointed in the GC Busan side of London Spitfire. Still though, I have to give all props to the Los Angeles Gladiators for taking this series. They performed well. In their next match, it would be a grudge match against the Los Angeles Valiant. Many were expecting another world-class performance for them, but it was the exact opposite. Starting off the series being first held twice in a row, the LA Gladiators found themselves in a hole against Valiant. Needing to fire back, the Gladiators would. They ended up taking Elios with superior fair mercy play, showing signs of hope the Gladiators might have a chance to crawl back into the series. But before they could, the Valiant put up another strong defense on Eichenwald, taking the series 3-1. All in all, the Gladiators are a tough team to gauge from this preseason, due to GC Busan looking very lackluster and Valiant potentially being a really strong team. Despite this ranking, the LA Gladiators have a ton of room to improve and can easily move up with more information. At rank 9, we have the Boston Uprising. The Boston Uprising going into the preseason had basically been labeled a joke. It was nearly impossible to find someone who legitimately thought they had a good chance to make some noise. Personally, I knew they had some really good players, but a lot of people just haven't heard of them. I took this opportunity to show the people that they are not to be taken lightly. They had an extremely close match against New York Excelsior. Both teams looked evenly matched all the way up to the last map. With slight adjustments on Dorado and Anubis, Boston could have easily been up 3-0 in this series. But due to New York Excelsior's previous experience, team cohesion, Pine's incredible display of flexibility and raw aim, they were able to come out on top. Boston definitely opened a lot of people's eyes though after that series, and showed us all that they can potentially be a playoff contender. In their second set, they faced off against Shanghai Dragons. In a 3-2 series, which was extremely close, another back and forth set where both teams looked dominant at times. This just proves again that almost any team in L right now is capable of beating each other on multiple maps. Boston is still a really new team with no prior synergy together. If they stay focused and use the underdog mentality to their advantage, they can really climb the scene and improve. Coming in at number 10, we have the Shanghai Dragons. Not many people expected much from Shanghai coming into this preseason. This was due to not knowing much about them or the Chinese scene. If anything, the only thing a lot of people knew about them was that there was a lot of drama about how the Chinese team's roster was selected. Other than that, they were a complete wildcard. Although they were 4-0'd by Seoul Dynasty on the first day, they had flashes that showed they can also be a contender in Overwatch League. One of their star players was Daya on Widowmaker. He hit some nasty shots, giving Shanghai life at times, and potential opportunities to steal a map. Unfortunately for Shanghai though, Seoul proved to be too good to let small mistakes snowball into something bigger, and handled their business. In their second match versus Boston, Shanghai had much more of a chance to show what they are capable of. Battling tooth and nail to the end, they barely fell short on Lijiang, losing the series 2-3. Going into the Overwatch League, I still believe they are a wild card. Basing their performance off the Boston set is really hard considering Boston also had close games versus New York Excelsior, and I have them at number 4. I think this just proves once again that any team can take maps off each other. The Dragons definitely have more room to prove, and we'll see what they can do once the season kicks off. Coming in at number 11, we have the Florida Mayhem. Coming into the preseason, Florida Mayhem was typically on the higher middle end of people's rankings. With high expectations come pressure, and it seemed like Florida struggled with that. The story of Logic being an online god and not able to translate that play to LAN continued. With only 2 map wins this preseason, Mayhem looked like one of the weakest teams to me. They ended up only winning the last map versus San Francisco Shock and the first map against Dallas Fuel. I'm not just placing them last because of their performance at the preseason, but I also think they're going to suffer from having such a short roster long term. Having more players on the roster in the long run will only make the team better, because these players will not only help each other learn, but they will challenge each other to improve. Not having these opportunities, I don't see Mayhem improving at a similar rate to most of the teams. I also have the unpopular opinion that yes, Tavik is a good player, but he also isn't the flex god that all these people think. He really needs to zone in on his hero pool and figure out what he wants to grind and master. That being said, Mayhem can still improve a lot and become one of the better teams in Overwatch League. Last but not least, we have Philadelphia Fusion. I thought it would be unfair to mention them in this video since they didn't play in the preseason, so we're just going to keep them at the bottom and keep them as a wild card for now because we don't really know. Once again, guys, thank you for watching my video. I put a lot of effort into these, and your support only makes me work harder to improve them. If you have any feedback, positive or negative, please leave it down below in the comments. And if you disagree with my rankings, feel free to post yours below. Just to remind you guys, I will be doing a giveaway soon, including that exclusive signed Kungarner jersey by me and Baby Bay. Be sure to like the video and subscribe, and stay tuned for updates on that. Peace, guys.